Alright, they're telling me I'm live, so hi everybody, greetings, and welcome to Garfield. I'm Janglestorm, and I'm gonna be running this game alongside another game very shortly. But first of all, we're gonna play Garfield Caught in the Act, not on the Genesis this time, even though I've been running that version for quite a while. But this is the first time I'm doing the Game Gear version for the marathon, so that should be good. Oh, hold on, let me see. Is anyone hearing me in chat? Because I'm hearing someone say no voice. Oh, there it is. Okay. It might have been delay. Okay, without further ado, I guess we're good to go then. So yeah, time starts in 3, 2, 1, go. So, just like in the Genesis version, Garfield gets sent to TV Land, as it's called, and he has to play through a couple of movie scenes in order to get out of the TV set again. And yeah, these are all based on very classic tropes such as, well, in this case, the era of the caveman, and in this case it's cave cat. Oh, I don't need to be up here. And we will be seeing quite a few of those things. I will be making quite a lot of comparisons to the Genesis version, because it's once you've seen the Genesis version, it will be surprising to see how different it is. But, well, basically it's also developed by a different team, so that pretty much explains it, I guess. It's a game where you have to platform and make sure you don't fall into pits like these, because it takes a while to get out, and if you... If you really want to see a time waste, this is definitely one of those things. So, apart from that, the setup of this, yeah, this game is pretty simple. You go through screens. You usually have to do one thing before you can head off to the next screen, and eventually you'll see something resembling a boss, but it's not too hard, really. So, in this case, we're riding this flying fish over this pit. That's sometimes necessary in order to get places. And we have to rescue Arlene in this case in order to get to the next screen. She's tied up to the tree and we get a kiss. Ah. And we have to ride this geyser all the way to the top so we can get out of here. And then finally we have to beat this caveman in order to get to the next section. The nice thing is your health always gets refilled by the time you get to the next part, so that's pretty sweet. Even in this case, when I was only with 1 health left, that's still pretty good. So what I did there was a tiny clip that allows me to, you know, for some reason get through enemies. This is the one instance where I know it's a thing. Normally speaking, if I try to jump and I wind up getting hit by an enemy before I... Let's see, I'm supposed to find something here. Oh, it's down here. But yeah, usually when I try to climb from those vines and such, I better not hit an enemy beforehand or I will fall all the way down and I will just lose grip altogether. So, gotta be safe there. I love this game. It seems to revolve around me taking damage, and so you will see me getting hurt quite a lot, but thankfully there's also a lot of food pickups. In this case, it's pizza and hamburgers. For some reason, there are no there's no instance of lasagna in this game, which is kind of weird because, you know, it's a Garfield game. You would expect lasagna, but nothing as such as in this game. Okay, we're gonna be traveling again. Okay, so that's where I basically fell down, but in this case it's not too much of an issue because I knew what was down there and I knew I was gonna land safely, so that was pretty cool. Gonna get over here, we have to make a tiny travel once again. The graphics, yeah, I'm not sure if it's a case for the Game Gear, but I know at least on the Genesis and on the PC, the graphics, or the sprites in this case, are hand-drawn by Jim Davis and his team at Pause. So it has this official seal of approval, if you like. They did actually actively collaborate on this. These backgrounds, on the other hand, are a bit weird. So let me tell you something about walls. This is not a wall. it looks like a wall, but it's not a wall. And a little bit further down the line, this is a wall. I hope you can see the difference. And I hope you find it useful knowing what walls are and what aren't, but... yeah, especially in this section, the background is a bit weird. Like, it seems like it's almost glitchy or something. Anyway, we have to fall down here in order to get ourselves back up here again, so we can continue on. I have to be a bit careful that I don't run off. It's very easy for me to lose control, lose inputs somehow. So sometimes you hear me jumping, but there's nothing actually happening, which is kind of frustrating at times. So that sort of is a bit of a jankiness that this game has. For some reason, this is also the longest level in the game. I used to do this in like 6 minutes. This week, I managed to bring the time down quite a bit, so I have brought it down to somewhere resembling 5 minutes, so it's getting there, but it's still a pretty long level. So now we have the first boss, who is actually the same in the Genesis game, which is Dino Odie. So it works somewhat similar in that we have to push these rocks onto the seesaw and launch them at Dino Odie. And we have to avoid the other rocks, these green rocks in this case. So we have to deal 6 air hits, and then Dino Odie falls to the floor, and we have to deal 4 more hits before this fight is over. On the Genesis, they sort of alternate between... oh, did I just... oh, I lost a rock, didn't I? Okay, well, thankfully I didn't softlock there. That's a thing that tends to happen with the Genesis game. Dino Odie can jump off screen, but that's one thing, at least, that the Game Gear game doesn't have. So that's definitely a good thing. Zombie Odie. Yeah, he kind of looks a bit like that, I guess. Okay, that's that. And now we have to deal 1, 2, 3, I think it's 4 hits? Something like that. Oh, 1 more. Okay, fine. Whatever you say. So, in between the levels, we travel through this TV land. We try not to get hit by the electricity. That sends us back to the last checkpoint. And, yeah, it can be very time-consuming. Also considering there's a couple of pretty much frame-perfect jumps coming up later in the run. This wasn't one of them, thankfully, but still. So the second level is an Egypt-themed level called The Curse of Cleopatra. And, well, for those who played the Genesis game, know that this is not exactly the same level at all. Like, they've done some very different things, even down to the boss fight being completely different, but you'll see that, like, you'll see soon enough what the boss fight is like. So first we have to go over here. We wind up using our projectiles pretty frequently, trying to defeat enemies. So upcoming is a section which is quite difficult for some reason, even though it shouldn't be. It's one of those things that can really define how the speedrun will go. So basically I have to, well, sort of stand on this elevator, this platform. Gonna stand on the left a little bit, hope it goes better. But I have to make sure to get over to the other side, which I'm basically only capable of doing really if I do a running jump. So I have to set it up accordingly. That was really close. That was really close. I've had some really good attempts at my runs recently where I did get this all at once, but this is fine. Okay, there we go. It's stupidly precise, and if you play this casually, I can understand this being a bit difficult to get through. Okay, I gotta watch out for my health as well, because it's down to 2. But thankfully, like I said, there's gonna be enough health pickups if I can get them. I see a burger. Yes. Okay, good. We're safe. And upcoming is also another slice of pizza, which is actually very, very healthy. That fills health of your life, or refills it. So that's really good. Gonna take a little bit of a damage boost here. I can usually afford that, so no worries there. Gonna to run, because, you know, reasons. The controls in this game, yeah, it's a thing. Like, I would say in all of the Cognac games, it's not necessarily... I've never... Okay, whatever, I'm just gonna do it this way. Normally speaking, I don't have troubles getting past that, but for some reason it was just trolling me immensely. Okay, here's also another fun part where I do sort of try to not defeat the enemies and still try to get past myself. Let's see, and run. Okay, thankfully the spider went out of the way, so that made it easier. Pizza is healthy, yes. Okay, we have to defeat the snake in this spot, and that brings us over here. This is the room where we will fight Cleopatra. It has some of the similar things that were in the Genesis game as well, such as lighting torches. In order, well, in the Genesis game it was in order to raise elevators and get to, well, defeat the boss eventually. But over here it's just to open a door, so it's a bit simpler than that. And Cleopatra is is right over here. We just have to deal a couple of hits. We have to see where she's coming from. But it's really, really straightforward, so there's no big... nothing major to... anything to write home about, so... There we go. That was it. Okay, upcoming is one of the sort of frame-perfect jumps here, so we have to get over here. Which we did. But if I was a little bit later, like 1 frame later, that would have cost me pretty badly. Anyway, now we are in a level that's unique to the Game Gear, Bonehead the Barbarian. And what we have to do here is we have to move these totems. The game wants you to believe that you have to make a set of stairs, but, well... Oh, there we go. There's a glitch. I was gonna say, which allows you to do another jump. So you don't have to put everything together, you just, you know, climb the highest tower, basically. So when I was first playing this, I thought that it was really easy to softlock the game if you did the wrong setup, because sometimes you're blocking paths and you can't get anywhere anymore. But you see these circles, those allow you to reset the puzzle that you're currently dealing with. So that's making things slightly more fair, I would say, which is a good thing. So they eventually teach you to, yeah, put a higher totem on a lower totem and make constructions like that. But it never really gets higher than 2, so we don't have to do this like super extensively or anything. Not enough cookies. Yeah, that's a funny thing, and that's one of the differences between this version and all the others, is you don't have commercial breaks, which is usually your chance to grab 1-ups if you want to. But just like in that game, you don't really need them. It's actually pretty generous with continues and such, so yeah, no worries there. Okay, it's time for some more puzzles. We have 5 situations in total, which sort of repeat themselves. Music is rather Pokemon-y. I would say this music is quite nice. Like I said, this was never released on any of the other systems, so I do wonder what it would have sounded like if it were released for, like, the Genesis. There is, however, the so-called lost levels. So, on the Genesis, they had certain time constraints, which didn't allow them to put in everything that they wanted to do, and as a result, the game itself is relatively short. But some of the ideas were later presented as the lost levels, which allowed people to play them anyway, and I think that did involve this level and also a couple of other things that... Well, I think one of the levels did make it on the PC version, which was an alien-themed level, and a section of something else involving a train, which is supposed to be part of a later level, which you will see here in some form, but more about it later. Okay, and the final puzzle is right here. Easy enough. This is pretty much down to memorizing and knowing which you need to push first. And again, I'm just abusing this trick in order to get through even faster. So now we have to do this boss fight. We basically damage boost and hit over and over again. I've got so much health anyway, so I have nothing to worry about. Okay, further on in TV land, we jump across this into the next, I guess, TV screen. We go to Count Slobula's castle. This is the first level on the Genesis. Elsewhere, it's not. In every single version of this game, the level order gets reshuffled one way or another. And in this case, we have to fight owls in order to get to underground sections and find doors. Why pizza, not lasagna? That's a really good question. I have no idea. I think the closest thing is the fact that the Genesis version has a waterfall with what I think is cheese in the Cave Cat level. That's probably the closest thing, but it's still not actual lasagna. Okay, so that was two pretty similar sections involving owls, and now we have to fight a skeleton who throws its head around like a boomerang. We can only do damage when the head is thrown, so that means, in this case, unfortunately, we can only do one hit per round. So we have to wait it out. And also, we can run past it, but we can't hit it from the other side, sadly. Otherwise, it would have made it easier for us to get to the warp section a bit faster. But there we go. Okay, into the castle we go. Here we're supposed to find 3 doors where we have to find keys. It's a bit of a search. You have to find your way through the maze, I guess, trying to find the right doors. But as soon as you know where you need to be, it's pretty simple. And there's a pretty good route for it, I guess. So basically we go over here as the first key. And we see these, I guess, rats who are throwing apples. Because this is a castle, I guess. Anyway, we now go up here, which warps us a little bit higher. We take the stairs down here, and this is where we get the second key. And you see bats flying around. Not the last of we'll be seeing of them. They'll return. The weird thing about these stairs is you want to kind of jump as soon as you run on them, but you see Garfield sort of stumbling down the stairs a little bit as he's trying to do something else. So that's a bit unfortunate. So I have to really readjust myself in order to get there. Oh, that was nice. I was able to keep momentum. Also, keep in mind, you see those chairs. The only hitbox that they have, the only thing that you can stand on is the cushions. So that's a pretty small part. And we'll be seeing that again very much in this fight against Slobula. This is sort of similar in that you have to put open the blinds, but the rest is rather different. You just have to make sure to get Count Slobula out of the way. Then you have to make sure that you are somehow able to stand on this chair, and then you have to pull down the blinds. And if you're fast enough, you can actually avoid Dracula appearing, which is happening really quickly, by the way. So, especially when you try to stand on the chairs and it's not even possible sometimes. Let's see. Okay, there we go. 1 health left, so that was really close. Alright. That was actually, that part can go wrong pretty quickly. Speaking of parts that can go wrong pretty quickly, there's this, involving a lot of rather precise jumps on small platforms. So, the Revenge of Orangebeard is a level that usually involves riding a boat, and you can sometimes jump off, swimming through the water a little bit, although that makes you take damage. In this case, you can't even enter the water, you'll just get sent back to the checkpoint, so it's a very different thing. So I have to be careful of where I land. And, you know, since it's a Game Gear, you also have the whole thing with the visuals being zoomed in. So every time you get to these pookies as checkpoints, it's quite a relief. This one's pretty nearby, so that's cool. Anyway, I don't consider this nearly the worst part. That's gonna come up in 2 levels, to be exact. You'll see that soon enough. First of all, we have this, and then we get into the jungle part of this level. So the build-up of this, or the structure of this level, is sort of similar to the game elsewhere, where you have to climb these trees. There are some differences, but you still end up finding a skeleton at the end, like elsewhere. You got monkeys, and every enemy is just trying to make your life difficult. Even this dove, it looks really cute, but don't try to get hit by it. Okay. Going up higher. So those are 1-ups. Like I said, I don't really need them. You also have Arlene heads. If you pick those up, you will get access to bonus levels. But yeah, so there's one. But they're costing extra time, so we're not going to do those. Let's see, can I make it? Okay, nice. Still got it. So we use these flesh-eating plants to get ourselves to higher places. So they're pretty useful, you can say. Ooh, I can get up higher. Pizza! And a nice grab there. So we're getting pretty close to the end of this level, so that wasn't too bad. I've had runs recently where this went pretty awful, you know, mostly because of what I did mention earlier, you know, trying to reach a vine and getting hit by an enemy before you get there. So now we find the skeleton, and you can see how many hits I still need to do by the pile of skulls there. So this is the last hit that I need to do in order to get out of here. And there we go. Okay, time for another frame-perfect jump. Okay, that went pretty well. At least I think it's frame-perfect. Like, I've had it happen where I timed it a little bit off, and you will instantly notice, so yeah. Anyway, this is a level that, as far as I know, is completely unique to the Game Gear, which also wasn't in the last levels. It's called Slab and Hood, and of course, as the name says it, it's modeled after Robin Hood. And it's a really short level, really. It's pretty nice. You go through the trees and in the forest, and there's also a circus section, funnily enough. That will explain itself later. Oh yeah, also I need to get over these walls. See, that's why we do climb the trees after all, to get over high walls. Just like real life. And in this case, in order to get access to the next part, we have to defeat this bulldog or pitbull, whatever. Easy enough, it only takes a couple of hits. There's a few more upcoming, like this one, but they only take 1 hit. And down below we get greeted by this Mouseketeer, I guess. They have a thing of repeating those things like at least 2 times, so it's kind of repetitive that way, but this won't work. Okay, so this is the final part of this level already. We have to close these gaps, really, so they don't throw spears at us anymore. Easy enough. You need to more or less figure out where to stand, but that's about it. So that concludes our venture into the world of Robin Hood. So now upcoming is Casablanca, which is a really easy level in the Genesis game and also the PC game. But in here, it starts off with a really punishing section, namely Garfield trying to jump from car to car. And, well, it seems pretty cool. You think, oh, you can dash and stuff, but the movement here is so janky, and especially the running animation, or the running and jumping, I guess. Because you try to oftentimes run and jump to the next car, and that's surprisingly tough. So I sometimes try to take a brief break and sort of set myself up for the next jump, Because I also think, you know, you see Garfield slip sometimes, and I think that's sort of defining my ability to do very long jumps. And of course you see these elderly people throwing flower pots at me because, I don't know. They have it in for Garfield, I guess. I don't know. Okay, well, also, yeah, thankfully you have these checkpoints, so that's good, but I do hope to get through this. That would be very nice. We haven't lost any lives, thankfully, so we should have enough chances. And if we do get really lucky, we might survive this pretty well. Okay, that's one hit I had to take. Nice, at least I made it to this checkpoint. So if I do die now, like like how, as happened here in this case, I do restart from this checkpoint, so that's nice. Okay, let's do the final stretch, and hopefully this goes well. Slipping away once more, and there we go, that's the end of this section. It's surprisingly tough for some reason. Like when I first played this casually, I was like, wow, okay. And as you may have predicted, it's a real run killer. This is still the one place where I could possibly save time on. But then again, it's still not entirely optimized either. But it's, I did bring down the time by 3 minutes over the course of last week. So in preparation for this, I got it down to a lower 26-minute time. So it's pretty nice. Gets closer to the runtime of the Genesis game. So this part is relatively similar to the Genesis game, except you don't have to go in and out of doors constantly, but visually it looks the same. But this is more stripped down. We only have to get here, throw things at this this dog who is holding Odie captive, which is really sad. But hey, we can save Odie, just like that. Okay, that's that, and then it's time for the final level, which is the television Wasteland, which starts off with this jump. Let's see how often this takes. They know how to kick off the final level in style. Let's put it that way. Okay, that's it. So we have to basically go through this level destroying these TVs. Every TV does serve as a checkpoint, and it sort of refers to a previous level, so you do see, well, okay, let's destroy this one first. So, in this case, you see from Bonehead the Barbarian, the Viking. Wait, I thought I... Wait, did I miss something? Oh, okay. Apparently that was needed too. I've never seen it before. I don't think that's even supposed to happen, but anyway. Okay, time for another jump, and onto this. You see the jerk bird from Orangebeard once again. This level is actually really short in the Genesis game, because it's only the boss fight really. It's this boss fight where you have to flip panels and constantly climb up and stuff, but here they decided to design an entire well, an entire level out of it, which is pretty neat, I must say. It's kind of nice. It's a lot more fleshed out in terms of ideas than the Genesis game, ultimately. Even though I would say it's a lot jankier also, but what's there? It's still worth a play for sure. Oh wait, yeah, we need to do a running jump for this. Okay, so we just hit this item here, but that brought us down here. And we're close to destroying the final TV, which brings us to the glitch fight. And normally speaking, if I would do this well, I would be able to set this up so I would be able to deal the first hit as the laser goes around. So I need to set up all the panels so that it bounces and reflects and eventually gets back to... Oh, damn, that was one too many. Reset, okay, there we go. So I only have to flip this panel a couple of times, and we only need to deal 3 hits to this boss, so this is actually a much more stripped down version of the glitch fight on Genesis, so this is gonna be the last hit, and time will be momentarily when I grab the last remote, and yeah, time stops as soon as the screen starts to fade to black, so get ready for that. And that's time. So game completed, and Garfield gets sent out of TV land onto his couch again, and seems like he had a pretty good time. He had some really nice adventures. He had a nice workout, so I guess he didn't mind too much. And I guess, you know, since there's no ending credits, this is pretty much the end of the game. So that tells us a lot. Yeah, so this game was actually developed by a different team than the Genesis game, because the Genesis and PC game, I believe, were developed by Sega themselves, and this was developed by Novotrade International, who were a Hungarian developer. I think best known for developing the Echo the Dolphin series. So this didn't quite have dolphins, but still. Anyway, yeah, that's it for Garfield Caught in the Act. I hope you enjoyed. For those who are familiar with the Genesis game, I hope you enjoyed watching this, because it's very, very different, as you can see. I could definitely recommend giving it a try. I'm currently the only person running this version, but it's always nice to see other people run this. So if you'd like to, go for it, I would say. Okay, like I said, that's it for me. I will be back in a couple of runs. I will be back with a game that I most recently did for HDQ this year, and that's going to be Gordo 106, and that's going to be an Atari Lynx game. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Enjoy the upcoming runs, and I'll see you in a bit.